All right, guys, we're gonna get right into it. We're gonna get right into it, man. So Donald Trump, man, Donald J. Trump making some moves here, man, making some moves. So they are tampering with the wrong crowd, guys. They are exposing the Treasury. They're exposing the Federal Reserve. They just exposed USAID, right? Allocating their funds to random foreign regime changes in foreign governments, the huge money laundering scam, right? The huge money laundering scam, right? Covered up as the big old Russia invasion of Ukraine, and Ukraine's the victim, and Russia's this big old communist entity that's trying to take over the world and censor everybody, and they're fascist, and then they're scamming these people millions of lives over a money laundering scam going on in Europe. USAID sending $40 million a week to the Taliban to chill. Just a lot of bullshit, man. A lot of bullshit. Now, Trump's taking fucking risks now, all right, man? Like he's messing with the guys. He's fucking with the Treasury, the Federal Reserve. He's fucking with them boys, the elitist. He's taking life or death chances. You got to understand this. A lot of people haven't come to grips with what he's doing now. The reality is he's taking life and death chances. Like he's risking it all. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be easy to get to him, but he's pissing a lot of people off with a lot of power, money, and influence, right? And it's just going bad, right? Look at Elizabeth Warren here, tripping on Trump. Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, fake Indian Elizabeth Warren. She's over here. I don't know what she's babbling about. Let's listen.
And now we've got Donald Trump and his co-president Elon Musk, and they're just running a wrecking ball through it.
Folks, she is speaking for the entire Democrat Party. Elon Musk was a hero for them when he built this electric car revolution they came to love. They turned on Elon Musk because his DOGE programmers and his DOGE geniuses are now inside the government for the first time in like forever, looking at where your taxpayer dollars are being spent. And now we find out that the collusion hoax, the Spygate thing, the impeachment hoax, and all of this may have been financed by some of the same payment systems Elon's looking into. Do you see why they're freaking out?
They're freaking out, guys, and they are plotting and planning. To be honest with you guys, I don't see them peacefully allowing this to happen. I don't see them allowing this to, giving up their power and influence that easily. I mean, you're talking about people who have, who are literal warmongering, genocidal maniacs, right? Who are allocating, funds. They're funding all these wars worldwide for profit. Like, these people are truly sick, man. And we got all types of people. RFK's exposing this shit, So, but he's tampering. I'm just gonna let's just be all the way blunt here. Your boy Trump's tampering with them boys. So he's taking some chances here, guys. You got to respect it, right? Not saying that I agree with Trump on everything. Like, obviously, this whole situation here with Gaza and the comments that he made is absolutely despicable. Trump's a moron when it comes to this situation here, especially when he's sitting there talking to Netanyahu like Netanyahu owns his damn life. Like Netanyahu's the fucking undercover president. And then Netanyahu's sick freak goes and gifts Trump a golden pager and tells him you're Israel's best friend. Like, it was kind of creepy, and people are looking at that like, so this guy Netanyahu, people don't want to talk about this. It's not really being talked about in the media. But he goes, it's like kind of there's just sources people seeing it that actually happened in real life. So he goes and gifts Trump, right? Well, no. So Trump tells him he congratulates him, or I guess he like, I don't know, something about the pager operation where they killed the Lebanese, where the terrorist, the genocidal terrorist pager operation that killed several Lebanese civilians. He goes and gives him a golden pager plaque that says, "You're America's best friend." Gives him the plaque, right? And then he hands him another pager, which was similar to the pagers used to kill, genocide the Lebanese civilians. And people were saying that the room kind of got like, it's a real like awkward interaction. And obviously Netanyahu had like a sick satanic laugh, smile, or whatever the fuck that he always does. And people were like, "What the fuck was that about? That shit was creepy and weird." Even there was a dude on CNN that came out and said that was the creepiest shit I've ever seen. So Trump's really in a pickle here, man. And me personally speaking, he's really in a situation where he's risking another, God forbid, but he's risking another, assassination attempt. I think have been at least 10 that have occurred that we're not even finding out about, right? There's people running into Mar-a-Lago every fucking day, right? So, this is an interview with Netanyahu and his the genocidal supporting terrorist Mark Levin, who's actually an Israeli Jew undercover. Shout out to him. I'm, nothing wrong with that. But let's listen into this
plan for Gaza, which is quite revolutionary.
Quite revolutionary.
People having the opportunity to move.
By the way, this clown sits there and he cosplays as this like conservative MAGA Republican guy, and I'm telling you guys go watch his shit. He's only passionate about Israeli. He's only passionate about Israel and Israeli, like, the situation going on in Israel. That's all he gets passionate about, right? All the other shit's an act. This guy's an undercover IDF soldier. I think he served in the IDF or something like that. So he sits around Fox News acting like an American patriot, and he's like this, uncle. He's this fucking Uncle Sam figure and shit. Like, fuck out of here.
Cleaning up the territory, about encouraging, or more than encouraging, Egypt and Jordan to take Gazans and so forth. What do you make of all of it?
I think that President Trump's proposal is the first fresh idea in years, and it has the potential to change everything in Gaza. Otherwise, we can keep coming back to the same thing over and over. Same old, same old, same old. We leave, but Gaza becomes again reoccupied by these terrorists who use it as a base to attack Israel. And he comes forward and he says, let's have a new idea. Oh. By the way, I've seen him do this time and again. He cuts to the chase. He asks you these things or says things that people find it jarring initially. And then I said they scratch their heads. They say, you know what? He's got a point here. And sometimes, and I hope this time too, they say, he's right, because it happened many times. So it's happened this time too. What is Gaza? Gaza is basically a small area right next to, it's 25 miles from Tel Aviv, which Hamas has used as a springboard for continuous attacks, terrorist attacks against Israel. We come in, we slap them, smack them, and we leave, and then we do it again, and we do it. They do it again, we do it again. It doesn't go anywhere. Now we did something else. We're going to finish Hamas off. And what happens then? Do you leave the people there with all that devastation? Do you say, well, they have to stay in, confined? Because nobody lets them leave.
Yeah, except, Israel has no right to return law. So pretty much, and a lot of people don't know about this, is that if a Palestinian were to leave their land or leave Gaza or the West Bank or whatever, they're not allowed to return back to
Donald Trump.
their land once they leave, and it's happened in so many cases. There's Palestinian refugees that have been in Lebanon and Jordan and all these other countries since 1948, since the first time they were exiled, the Nakba, and they've never been able to return for, several years. And it's never going to happen, right? So this is all, and Israel's never going to withdraw, and it's a big old fucking mess. But they have a policy in Israel where if they leave, they can't come back, right? And the Palestinians realize this, and not only that, you got to understand something. Like a lot of these, they're kicking the Palestinians out to Jordan and to all these other countries, the Sinai and Egypt, and what they're doing is, and they did this in Lebanon, they're using the Palestinians when they regroup and remilitarize in those countries, right? Now they have more of an excuse. Oh, well, Hamas is in the Sinai now. Now we got to push into Egypt. Oh, now we got to push into Jordan. All to create, to eventually, with their, this big old Zionist fucking goal to create Greater Israel, which is an extension of land, pretty much like around the entire Levant region, part of Egypt, even part of Saudi Arabia, where there was a biblical biblical prophecies that the Jews essentially occupy that territory in Saudi Arabia. Like, these people are nut jobs, right? So it's giving them an excuse to invade Jordan, to invade Egypt, to invade Lebanon, to invade Syria when they push the Palestinians out.
In this country, there's a lot of people who still wonder what role, if any, Saudi Arabia had in 9/11. Now, there's a lot of talk about Saudi Arabia, peace with Saudi Arabia.
We know who was behind 9/11. We're not going to get into it, but we know what the real deal was.
You read in the papers, well, Saudi Arabia says yes, but they have a caveat. There needs to be a Palestinian state. Since when did the Palestinians become so important to the Saudi Arabians?
Well, we got the Abraham Accords because we went around the Palestinians. Because the Palestinians, whether they're Hamas or their competitors, the Palestinian Authority, they both want to see the end of Israel. The only difference is Hamas says, let's use it immediately by terror and military means, and the other guys say, no, let's do it by lawfare, by the ICC. Let's put pressure on Israel to withdraw to these indefensible lines where we're 9 miles wide. President Trump says Israel's too small. He cuts to the chase, gets right to the point. And he was just right. Well, we can't be any smaller. I mean, we're not going to have an organization that is committed to our destruction 9 miles from the sea. All they have to do is cut us in half, and we're dead. So, yeah, that's something that may have been debated in Israel, but after October 7th, after the massacre, that's gone. Nobody's going to do that. Nobody's going to say, oh, just give them a Palestinian state. They just had one. It's called Gaza under Hamas. That was an effective Palestinian state. What happened with that, you see, it was used as a springboard in an attempt to destroy us. When we complete the changeover of the Middle East, when we cut the Iranian axis down to even further than we've already cut it, when we make sure that Iran doesn't have nuclear weapons, when we destroy Hamas, that will set the stage for an additional agreement with the Saudis and with others. By the way, I believe also in the Muslim world, because it's peace through strength. When we are very strong and we stand together, objections that are raised now as insurmountable sort of change.
All right, man. Yeah, except that the Palestinian Authority has now become like they're really a joke. To be honest with you guys, they were shooting at people in the West Bank protesting, the annexation of Area C and all that shit. Anyways, man, let's get into USAID funding, bro. USAID funding has been fucking deeply exposed, the deep state, whatever you want to call them, man. These guys that are money laundering Ukraine, Israel, they're money laundering. They're sending money everywhere to fund all these wars and regime changes, and they're using our tax dollars to do that. And the Soros Foundation, for example, was given $270 million, right, to fund sex changes and all types of horrific shit. Let's take a look at this video of RFK, kind of going into further detail.
2014,
about
there are riots.
USAID.
It's called the Madonna Rebellion in Ukraine, which we're not told that we are financing those riots. The newspapers never told us, our government never told us. USAID, which is a CIA front, put $5 billion into funding those riots. Those riots lead to to a coup d'etat against the first democratically elected government of the Ukraine. It was a government that refused to choose sides and to say we're going to be on the side of the West. So we wanted them out. A month before that government is overthrown, Victoria Nuland, who's the part of the centerpiece of the neocon ideology and who is now a high-level official in the State Department, has a secret call with the U.S. ambassador, which is tape recorded and is now public, which anybody can go and look up, where she is picking the new cabinet for the Ukraine, which is which is a U.S. Western cabinet. So they're picking the new government a month before the old government is overthrown.
Is that how democracy? Is that democracy when Victoria Nuland picks your government?
Well, that's the point. Is USAID doesn't really do, and the CIA don't do democracy. The CIA has overthrown, I think, 83 governments between 1947 and 1997. That's a third of the governments on Earth, and most of them were democracies. Oh, it doesn't
83 governments, guys. 83 governments have been regime changes being funded all over the world with USAID, right? Not only that, $270 million to the Soros Foundation, funding, promoting sex changes and all this other stuff, to the behest of the taxpayers of the United States of America and people all over the world, getting, pretty much just graped out of their asses to fund to overthrow 83 fucking governments so they're pro-Western and submissive to Western society. That's
democracy.
wild.
That's good. It does. We've now committed $113 billion over there. And just to put that in perspective, the total budget of EPA is $12 billion. The total budget of the CDC is $12 billion. We're sending $113 billion over. When Mitch McConnell was asked, how can we do this? When our country, when you're cutting food stamps and cutting Medicare, cutting food stamps to 30 million Americans, cutting Medicare to 15 million Americans, but they're not going to have any health insurance. How can we send 113 billion over there? If we had that 113 billion here, we wouldn't have had to cut one food stamp payment. And he said, well, don't worry.
They're cutting food stamps and Medicare to fund regime changes worldwide to make sure that they're subservient to these elitist assholes, right, in the Federal Reserve. And we're getting, hammered as citizens. And the worst part is the exploitation of the third world. Look at these people are hungry people all over the world. They're starving, man. They're dying from famine and war and shit. What a fucking corrupt
system. The money's
system,
not
man.
staying in Ukraine. It's
Sick.
all coming back to military contractors in the United States.
Right.
So that's interesting because then you look at, who owns those military contractors, and you see who gets on CNN to pump up the Ukraine war. It's a bunch of former generals and colonels and Pentagon people. But if you go in, and CNN never, and MSNBC never do this, but if you go look at those guys, they're all people who are working for Raytheon and General Dynamics and Boeing and Lockheed. So they're generals, but they're not identified that, they're actually working for the military contractors. who are cashing in on the war. And then, those military contractors in turn are owned by three companies. All of them are owned by three companies, by BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard. And the inflation that from printing the money to fund the war and to fund the 16 trillion we spent to fund the lockdowns, the COVID lockdowns, 8 trillion we've spent on these wars since 2020, all of them losing wars, all of them that made our country less safe. Obama signed a moratorium that shut down the 18 worst of Anthony Fauci's experiments, where most of them were taking place in Galveston and in North Carolina by a scientist called Ralph Barrick.
All right, we can't. I don't even know. Can we talk about this on YouTube? Probably not. Shout out to RFK, man. He's been dropping some gems there, man. It's unreal, guys, how these are retired generals from the U.S. military in on it with and they're representing Raytheon, all these other manufacturers, these weapons manufacturer companies, right? Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, all this other shit, they're representing those people, which are owned by, the fucking BlackRock, which is going to monopolize the entire global market pretty soon, right? They're not even letting motherfuckers buy single family homes in this country. So interesting shit that's going on. I mean, this is just fucking absolutely
There's a lot of people who still wonder what role, if
interesting, with how corrupt this system is, man. And now you have Trump really tampering with these people, right? The Treasury, the Federal Reserve. 'Cause you guys got to remember, the Federal Reserve is a private entity, right? And the federal government, I think they employ or they choose the representatives or the legislatures who work for the Federal Reserve, but it's still a private entity. And these people have, and these people are they're the ones creating all the monetary policies in the country, and they're the ones allocating our tax dollars so they can launder that shit to the middle, to via under the guise of the Ukrainian war, killing millions of people. These are some sick people, bro. And, the worst part about it, guys, is not only are they killing these people, because you're looking at the numbers, you're like, man, how many people have already died in the Ukraine-Russia war? What, like over 2 million, right? On both, if you add up both sides. And like, you got to understand, there's like a huge market for, these body parts and stuff like that, like a human heart on the black market's worth $1 million. So you got to think, like, they're using all these dead bodies and they're profiting off of that too, man. So the corruption's so deep and wide, dude. I'm telling you, man. Like, you got to think, like, that Iron Dome shit. It cost like $1 million for them to. It cost like $1 million. I don't know. I think it cost them $1 billion to thwart the attack on Iran, right? And with that $1 billion, because we all know who harvests organs. Which country in the world harvests the most organs, and is involved in that trade. For every one of those rockets intercepted, right, they're harvesting X amount of bodies, and they're selling. Someone correct me, Alex. I don't know. They say I think a human heart is worth like $1 million on the black market. Like, just someone wants to do the operation or needs a heart transplant. That's like about $1 million there, right? So you got to imagine, like, these bodies that. These people that are dying and people don't know where they're at, or, truly disgusting shit, bro. Anyways, man, let me know what you guys think in this comment section down below, man. Yeah, we're living day by day, man. This shit is wild.